In December 1944, Adolf Hitler launched his last major offensive on the Western Front. An operation intended to split the Allied armies, capture Antwerp, and force a negotiated peace with the Western powers. Known as the Battle of the Bulge, this surprise attack was Germany's desperate gamble to reverse the tide of World War II. By this time, the Nazi war machine was collapsing under the combined pressure of Allied advances from both the East and West. Yet, Hitler believed that a decisive counterattack in the Ardennes could shatter Allied morale. The offensive was planned with utmost secrecy, involving over 200,000 German troops, 1,000 tanks, and poor weather conditions that grounded Allied air forces. At first, the plan worked. German forces achieved significant penetration into the thinly defended Ardennes. However, beneath the surface of this massive clash lay a hidden force that would shape its outcome: nature, resilience, and the silent but powerful elements that conspired to turn Hitler's bold strike into disaster. The German assault began on December 16, 1944, under cover of dense fog and snow, achieving almost total surprise. American forces, exhausted and inexperienced in that sector, were caught off guard. The 106th and 28th Infantry Divisions bore the brunt of the initial attack and suffered heavy casualties. German armoured divisions, spearheaded by elite panzer units, smashed through Allied lines and advanced rapidly westward. The Bulge that appeared on Allied maps symbolized the temporary success of Hitler's plan. Yet, while the world saw a powerful German resurgence, an invisible adversary was already at work. The extreme cold, the lack of fuel, and logistical strain began to erode the German offensive from within. The Nazis had banked on quick movement and favourable weather. Instead, they faced blizzards, fuel shortages, and relentless Allied resistance. The hidden force, both environmental and human, was quietly preparing to strike back, setting the stage for a stunning reversal. The winter of 1944-1945 was among the harshest in European history. Temperatures plummeted to 20 degrees C, snow blanketed the Ardennes, and roads became icy death traps for men and machines. The German army, poorly equipped for winter warfare, suffered frostbite, mechanical failures, and supply breakdowns. Soldiers lacked adequate winter clothing, and vehicles froze overnight. The terrain itself became an enemy. The same snow and fog that initially shielded the German advance soon trapped it, slowing movement and hampering communication. Fuel shortages forced German tank crews to abandon or hide their vehicles. Meanwhile, American soldiers, though also freezing, began to adapt with better logistical support and air-dropped supplies. Silent, impartial, and unyielding became the hidden force that tilted the balance. It punished overconfidence, rewarded endurance, and ensured that Hitler's final offensive would grind to a halt long before it reached Antwerp. Another hidden force that shaped the Battle of the Bulge was intelligence. Specifically, the Allied code-breaking and reconnaissance networks. Although Hitler had achieved surprise at the outset, the Allies quickly began to regain control through superior information management. The British Ultra program, which had cracked the German Enigma code earlier in the war, provided invaluable insights into enemy movements once communication resumed. Moreover, local intelligence from Belgian resistance fighters alerted the Allies to German positions and supply problems. The Germans, operating under strict radio silence to maintain secrecy, had isolated themselves from critical updates. In contrast, once the skies cleared, Allied aircraft and reconnaissance units rapidly identified key German concentrations. This intelligence advantage allowed the Allies to organize a coordinated counterattack. The unseen analysts, cryptographers, and scouts, far from the battlefield, became an invisible but decisive force that guided the Allied recovery and undermined Hitler's meticulously planned surprise. The German plan, codenamed WWII, depended heavily on speed and fuel. Yet, fuel shortages were a crippling weakness. Hitler expected to capture Allied fuel depots to sustain the advance, but his armoured divisions quickly ran dry. The massive Tiger and Panther tanks, though formidable, guzzled fuel at unsustainable rates. Supply convoys, hampered by Allied air superiority and bombed bridges, could not reach the front lines efficiently. This logistical nightmare turned Germany's strength into a liability. American forces, aware of the German fuel crisis, even destroyed their own fuel stores to prevent capture. When tanks stopped moving, the offensive lost momentum, and the blitzkrieg spirit that once defined German warfare vanished. The hidden force of logistics, often overlooked but crucial, proved deadlier than bullets or bombs. The battle was not merely won in the forests of the Ardennes, but in the invisible struggle to keep armies fed, fueled, and mobile. Amid chaos and retreat, the true hidden force that turned the tide was human resilience. Small groups of American soldiers, surrounded and outnumbered, refused to surrender. The most famous stand occurred at Bastogne, where the 101st Airborne Division held out against overwhelming odds. When the Germans demanded their surrender, General Anthony McAuliffe's legendary one-word reply, "Nuts," symbolized the unbreakable Allied spirit. These acts of defiance disrupted German timetables and bought time for reinforcements. Ordinary soldiers became extraordinary under pressure, displaying courage that no military plan could predict. The morale of Allied troops, bolstered by faith in ultimate victory, contrasted sharply with the fatigue and disillusionment among German ranks. The hidden force of human determination, driven by belief, camaraderie, and purpose, emerged as one of the most powerful elements in halting Hitler's last gamble. By December 23, 1944, the skies finally cleared, a turning point that revealed another hidden force waiting in the wings. The Allied air forces, grounded by fog and snow during the early days of the offensive, returned with devastating effect. Thousands of bombers and fighters filled the skies, attacking German columns, destroying fuel convoys, and strafing retreating troops. The Luftwaffe, depleted and disorganized, could not compete. The once powerful German armor became easy targets on snow-covered roads. Allied air dominance restored communication, supply, and morale among ground forces. The return of air power transformed the battlefield from a German advantage into a death trap. What Hitler had hoped would be a winter miracle instead became a nightmare of aerial annihilation. The hidden force of the sky, the weather's shift, turned nature once more against Germany and delivered the decisive blow that crippled the offensive. Another hidden force working against Hitler's plan was his own leadership. Isolated, delusional, and distrustful of his generals, Hitler insisted on unrealistic goals. He ignored logistical warnings and refused to authorize tactical retreats. Many of his commanders, such as Gerd von Rundstedt and Hasso von Manteuffel, recognized the offensive's flaws but dared not contradict him. The rigid, top-down structure of Nazi command paralyzed German flexibility. Meanwhile, Allied leaders like Eisenhower, Bradley, and Patton coordinated with remarkable adaptability. General Patton's Third Army, executing one of the fastest military pivots in history, raced north to relieve Bastogne. The contrast was stark. One side crippled by fear and fanaticism, the other united by purpose and professionalism. The hidden force of leadership, its competence or failure, determined not just tactics but morale. Hitler's inability to adapt ensured that his final offensive would become a symbol of hubris and collapse. While German forces relied on surprise, the Allies relied on communication. Once the initial shock faded, rapid coordination among Allied units became a decisive factor. Radio networks, intelligence updates, and logistical rerouting allowed the Allies to stabilize their front. Eisenhower's decision to give General Montgomery temporary control of northern forces, while Patton led southern counterattacks, showed strategic unity. German divisions, on the other hand, struggled with disrupted communication lines and rigid orders. Many units advanced blindly, unaware of neighboring movements or changing objectives. This breakdown turned an initially organized assault into a chaotic retreat. The hidden force of communication, so easily underestimated, proved vital in orchestrating a massive multinational response. It reflected not just technology, but trust and cooperation across diverse Allied armies. In contrast, the German war effort was silenced by its own secrecy and fragmentation, sealing its fate. The people of Belgium, particularly in towns like Saint-Vith, Malmedy, and Bastogne, played a quiet but significant role in resisting the German offensive. Local civilians acted as guides, messengers, and informants for the Allies. Many risked their lives to shelter wounded soldiers or report enemy positions. In contrast, the German advance was slowed by sabotage, misinformation, and local hostility. The terrain, familiar to the Belgians, became a weapon against the invaders. Even small acts, blocking roads, misleading patrols, or hiding fuel supplies, added up to major disruptions. The hidden force of civilian resistance reflected the moral strength of those who refused to submit to Nazi occupation. Their courage under fire reinforced the Allied cause and symbolized a deeper truth. Wars are not only won by armies, but by the collective will of people determined to resist tyranny. By early January 1945, the German offensive had stalled completely. The Allies launched a coordinated counterattack, pushing the enemy back through the Ardennes. German forces, depleted of fuel, ammunition, and morale, began a chaotic retreat. The Bulge on the map slowly flattened as Allied armour advanced. Hitler's dream of dividing the Western Allies evaporated, and the loss accelerated Germany's downfall. Over 100,000 German soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. Losses that could never be replaced. The hidden forces, whether logistics, leadership, morale, and intelligence, had converged to crush the offensive from within. The Battle of the Bulge became not just a military engagement, but a lesson in the power of unseen influences. It revealed that strength is not merely in numbers or weapons, but in adaptability, endurance, and the human spirit's ability to persevere against overwhelming odds. The Battle of the Bulge marked the end of Hitler's ability to wage offensive war. His final gamble failed, leaving the German army crippled and the road to Berlin open. Yet the victory was not achieved by brute force alone. It was shaped by hidden elements, nature's wrath, the resilience of ordinary soldiers, the precision of intelligence, and the power of unity. These forces, invisible yet decisive, remind us that history often turns on factors beyond mere strategy. The Battle of the Bulge stands as a testament to endurance over arrogance, preparation over impulse, and cooperation over tyranny.